Hey, it's Lauren with Bargain Bead Box, and today we're going to be using the December Glacial Glimmer collection to make a double strand bracelet. One question I get every time we send chips is, how do you work chips, this irregular shape, into your design? So I'm going to just give a really simple idea today with this bracelet. So we'll be using our blue lace agate chips. We'll use a couple of our Malaysia Jade 8mm rounds, some of our 6mm cornflower agate, our Stardust spacer beads, our bead caps, crystal rondelles, and then the hook and eye clasp, and one of our knot charms from the December box. The only items that I'm adding are some basic findings. So we have our, I'm using a 0.38mm tiger tail. It's a 7-strand. I'm using some wire guardians. This is fine 1091. We may be temporarily out of stock, but we do have more on the way. I'm using an 8mm jump ring. This is ring 120 from beadboxbargains.com. And then finally, you can use any kind of crimp bead or crimp cover combination that you want. I'm using our little Stop It crimps. This is fine 2887 at beadboxbargains.com, just because I really like them with the wire guardians. They're really easy. So let's get started. Okay, I've got everything laid out here. I'm going to start by cutting some wire, and I'm going to do about 12 inches here. I like to have extra to work with. I prefer to waste a couple inches and have it be too short and waste the whole thing and all the effort of making it. So I'm going to cut 2 pieces. This is going to be a double strand bracelet. I just wanted to make something kind of delicate that really features those blue lace agate chips. So there we go. Put my first piece away. So I'm going to start with a wire guardian and one of our little stopper crimps. So I'm just going to thread the wire guardian up through one side here, and then I'll thread the wire back through the guardian down the other side. And you can also put the crimp bead on first. This end, it doesn't matter because I'm just going to slide it up from the other end, just because I find it's easier to get those 2 ends in place first, so that when you have the crimp bead, you can just kind of slide it over both here. And then I like, sorry if you can hear the thunder, it's a lovely weather we're having today here in Tullahoma, Tennessee. It's a cozy day to be inside and beading. I just like to squish these little sides together a little bit. There we go. Just so it narrows a little bit. All right, so I've got a tiny little bit of wire showing underneath there. You want to pull that tight. And then you can see there's this little peg sticking up on our stopper crimp. I'm just going to take my pliers, and I'll try my smooth pliers first, and if I can't get it, then I'll do my chain nose. I'm sometimes better at these than others. My wrists make everything look harder than it is. But I'm just going to squeeze that down, and what that does is the peg pushes on the wires inside the crimp bead and holds them in place. And I'm going to turn it around and squish from the other angle too, just to make sure get as tight as can be. Angle has just as much to do with this as force. You want to make sure you're pushing the peg down and not to the side, and that feels really sturdy. And I'm not even going to bother trimming that because it's so small. I'm just going to bead right on top of it. And I'm going to start with one of our Stardust spacer beads. Here we go. And I'm just going to stick it over, there we go, over both pieces of wire. And now I'm going to use 7 chips. And you can string them randomly. I tend to kind of curate a little more and look and find some even-ish chips. I like them center drilled if possible. They don't have to be the same size, but I just kind of curate the order slightly, I suppose. And your chips may be different sizes and shapes than mine. You may need a different number of them. It really doesn't matter. Do do whatever works for you. I'm just gonna do 7 chips, I think. I like uneven numbers for this sort of thing. And I'll do maybe a small one last. I really overthink this, guys. You can just put 7 chips on and be good too, but I like them to look kind of bigger ones in the middle, smaller ones at the end. Like I said, I'm way pickier than I need to be here. All right, so 7 chips, and I'm gonna do another one of these Stardust spacers. I love how sparkly those are. And now I'm going to do a bead cap on either side of a Malaysia Jade bead here. And that is going to be our basic pattern. I'm going to repeat it probably twice more and end with the blue lace agate chips if I can. So something to keep in mind with bracelet length here, we are using a hook and eye clasp. And when you do that, you want to keep in mind that the hook and eye clasp itself is going to take up some bracelet space. But you're going to need a little bit of extra length to have the room to kind of maneuver the hook into the eye. So just bear that in mind. So it does not need, this segment does not need to be as long as I would use if I was doing just one single strand bracelet with like a magnetic clasp or something. I don't need to make it that long, but I do need to keep in mind that this is going to add a lot of length, but also keep in mind I have to be able to go up and into the bracelet. This is not going to be the world's tightest bracelet, which is why I'm doing it multi-strand. I like my bracelets to have a little give to them, and I like doing that with multi-strands, especially because they really fill up visually that extra room, if that makes any sense at all. I'll show you what I mean when I'm putting it on at the end. Okay, there's 7 more. I love chip beads, honestly. I know they're a little irregular and thus a little bit different to work with, but I think they're so fun too. And we're going to do 1 strand with chips here, and then the beads that I'm not using right now, the crystals and the 6mm beads, we'll use on the 2nd strand of the bracelet. And you can add your own fancy touches to this bracelet. We're going to use jump rings to attach our wire guardians to the clasp, and you can absolutely add some beaded dangles if you want. There's so many different ways you can do this, but I opted just to use the this charm. I like that. It's very simple. It's not too much. But I love beaded dangles on multi-strand bracelets too by the clasp. I think they're also gorgeous, and that would work well with this design if that was something you felt like doing as well. All right, once again, really overthinking my chip beads here. Here we go. That's 5. Gonna need 2 more. I like this nice round one. Look how round that is. And then we'll do a little one on the end. And 7. There we go. Okay, so this is probably going to be my last 8mm round that I need. I have about like a 6-inch wrist, I guess. So if you have a different size, you can add segments. You can always stop in the middle of, like you could do 4 chips on either end, or you can stop in the middle. It doesn't really matter with this bracelet. You can repeat the pattern as much as you need to. You can stop in the middle of the pattern. This particular design is pretty forgiving, which is something that I like about it. All right, 1. Oh, it's a big chunky chip. Maybe I'll use that one in the middle. 2, 3. I don't know, it's a lot bigger than the other ones I've used. Once again, overthinking, but 4, maybe this one, 5, that one's fine, 6, slightly smaller, and And now 7. Okay, I think that's probably a good length. Let me measure it real fast here, because it won't go all the way around the wrist. We're leaving room for the jump rings and the hook. It may even be slightly long, but I think that'll work well. I think it'll be fine. We will find out, won't we? Okay, so now I'm going to make sure to put my crimp bead on first, a little stopper crimp, before the wire guardian, because on this end I have to go back down through it and I don't have the option of sliding it over both at the same time. So again, I'm just going to kind of pinch my wire guardian shut at the bottom a little more, because I think that makes a slightly smaller loop, which is what I'm looking for here. Alright, and now I'm going to try, we're going to go back through the wire guardian and then back down and through this stopper crimp, and I want to try, here we go, slide the stopper crimp as close as I can, try to hold the wire guardian as close down to the stopper crimp as I can while I pull on it. You don't want to kink your wire, and something to keep in mind when you're using tiger tail is you don't want to pull it so tight that all the beads are just stacked on top of each other and don't have any wiggle room at all. But you want to pull it tight enough that you don't have a big gap either. So one of the things I like to do is curl my bracelet up the way that it's going to be used, because that will just kind of make the beads move a little bit naturally. And now I'm just going to squish down that tab on the stopper crimp. Push down the stopper. Hold on, I'm going to pull this a little more, I think. All right. Nope, it keeps jumping up. Need to get better tension on it. Here we go. Okay. One last final pull. Now let's try to push down that stopper. Try this from the other angle. Again, this is where my wrists do not have their finest moment. Oh, I think I got it. There we go. I deal with tendonitis and make all of this like squeezing pliers shut really hard thing look a lot harder than it really is. But once again, the angle matters just as much as the force. And there we go. And we've got it. And you might still have a teeny tiny little bit sticking out because you've got 2 wires in there too taking up space. That's totally fine. Now I'm just going to trim this off as close to the bottom as I can. And then I will tuck any last remaining end down and into that spacer bead there. There we go. I'm going to give that a little bit more of a squeeze too. Okay, that looks pretty good. And it feels nice and secure. All right. I am now going to make the second strand, which I want to be about the same length as the first, but I'm going to do a different pattern. And it doesn't matter if they're a couple millimeters off. I'm going to start my pattern the same way. There's my crib bead, here's my wire guardian. And then once we get the end finished, then we'll start stringing, and we will be using different beads this time. Goodness, this wire guardian is sort of stubborn. Here we go, finally. Pull this over both ends. Give it a nice, secure squeeze. I'm gonna pull the end just about out, leaving just a teeny tiny tail that I can tuck under some beads here. Yeah, I was pushing that sideways rather than down. All right, I'm gonna try this again because I slightly messed up the angle there. And then let my wire get loose in the wire guardian. Until you squeeze it down all the way, these stopper crimps are pretty forgiving, which I appreciate. This is not the first time I've had to readjust myself here. Tell you what though, all my practice ones turned out great. It's just hard to do down here on the beading mat a million miles from my face, or it feels that way anyway. Okay, so we're gonna try this one more time. And you can see I've got the stopper part way down, but not all the way down. So let's push it down the rest of the way. There we are. Make sure that'll hold. That feels nice and secure. There we go. Like I said, these stopper crimps are generally pretty easy to work with. Very forgiving. All right, so we're gonna use some crystals this time and some 6mm rounds. And I think I'm gonna start with another spacer bead here. And once again, I'm gonna kind of tuck it over the tail of my tiger tail there. And yeah, it'll stay there. There we go. They have nice big holes, these Stardust spacer beads. I like that about them. And then I think I'm going to just go ahead and start with a 6mm round. And I'm gonna pick one that sort of matches, at least on this end, sort of matches the blue lace agate. We're kind of inverting the colors here. We're gonna have these agate, which pull in that cornflower lacy blue, and then that aquamarine type light blue we're gonna get from the crystals, which we're gonna do 3 of. So I think it'll coordinate nicely with our other strand. So 3 crystals, and this one's really easy. I don't have to sit here and agonize over which chip to use, but I do have to decide whether I want a bluer 6mm or a lighter 6mm, and I think I'm gonna mix it up. I'm gonna use more of like a cornflower, darker one here. I think it's gonna be pretty. And now 3 more crystals. And every strand of agates will look a little different. I like the white agate with this too. I like the ones that sort of match the blue lace. You really can't go wrong. Just, as Lynn would say, do what makes you happy. Here we go. I'm gonna use, ooh, look at the banding on that one. That makes me happy, I tell you what. That's my other favorite thing about blue lace agate, is just that subtle banding. It's so pretty. Such delicate wintry colors. All right, so 3 more crystals. And we're just gonna go until we have about the same length here. I may not finish the pattern completely, but again, that is totally fine. It is whatever works for you. Like this one. This one's really banded. And because I think we'll definitely need this pattern repetition completed. I'll probably stop midway through the next repetition. And again, they don't have to match like perfectly down to the 1/4 mm. I am very much an eyeballer, very much a, how does this look and feel? But if you want to measure it, if that's how your brain works and what makes you happy, go for it. That will be certainly a very effective method as well. I'm gonna use more white bead here on the end, unless I hate it. Let's see. I like that. That's pretty. I think we can fit maybe 1 or 2 crystal rondelles. Let's see. That looks about the same length to me. Close enough. Now I'm going to check my pattern and make sure I don't have any pattern errors. Looks good. And now I'm just going to do another crimp bead. Okay, so we're just going to add our wire guardian. We're going to go through one end, back down the other side, and then we'll also stick it back through our crimp bead here as well. And I always like to, once I get to this point, kind of pull the crimp bead down a little bit as much as I can. so that I'm not crimping the wire in a place I don't want it to crimp in as I'm pulling this shut. I'm going to squeeze those tips at the bottom of that wire guardian a little closer together too. All right, see how this does. Pull that as tight as I can. Well, but again, you don't want it too tight. So I'm going to go ahead and curl this up. Hold as much tension as I can reasonably here without pulling it to the point where the beads don't move anymore. And give it a little squeeze. This is so much easier when I can hold it up to my face and look closely at the angle I'm using. But here, I'll try to show you what I'm doing there. That actually looks pretty good. This one I think is cooperating nicely. Yeah, that feels really nice. The beads aren't bunching up too much, but there's not a lot of extra space either. I'm happy with that. Give it a pull, make sure I got it. Yep, feels nice and sturdy. So now I just have to trim it. Again, I'm going to leave just a little bit. Then I'm going to take that end, see if I can't pop it down into this crystal bead here. And if I can't, I'll just trim it a little more. It needs to be just a tiny bit shorter. And now I'm going to poke it down. There we go. I really don't like pokey ends, so I always try to slip it under the bead and check both my ends here. They look great. No pokey ends. Those crimp beads look very nice. We're ready to finish this piece. So I'm going to use an 8mm jump ring on either end to attach the halves of my clasp. And on, I think, the hook end, I'm going to also add a little dangle here. And again, you can make a couple little beaded dangles. Those would be really cute too. I'm not going to do that today. Today I'm just going to use my charm, I think. Okay. I like to use an 8mm or larger jump ring when I have a multi-strand bracelet, just because I don't like it to bunch up too much. So I'm going to put both ends of the bracelet on, and then my clasp end, and now I'm just going to finish it up. There we go. Close that back up. Make sure that you're moving it forward and backward and not like curling and uncurling. All right, other side now. Just gonna pull that towards me to open it up. And I'm gonna try to make sure these go in the same order so they're not all twisty. They might do their own twisty thing later, who knows, but we'll get them a good start at least. I put on my charm, and now I'm going to put on my other clasp half, and this is double-sided, so it doesn't really matter which way faces forward. You can, if you want, add another small jump ring to get this charm to dangle more sideways, but with this particular charm, I don't think it's going to matter much once I've got it on. All right, and there's my bracelet. I'm going to take my jump ring off and see if I've done the length well. So as I was saying, you need a little bit extra just to be able to work with this hook, which I'm going to get to try one-handed, and wish me luck, because you've got to go through the bottom of the loop here, kind of sideways, which I'm very skillful at, clearly. There we go. And you get up past that little loop. Yeah, that's actually kind of perfect. Look at that. You've got your little charm, which is cute. There's the clasp. And yeah, I like having a double strand because it's very classy. All right, so that's really all there is to it. This is a very simple, easy bracelet, but I like the look with the little dangling charm here. Your icy colors, again, I like how the agate pulls in the blue lace agate here, and then you've got some sparkles that match the Malaysian jade sort of on your other strand. Just a lot of fun. I'd love to see what you create too with your package. You can always, if you'd like to share your designs with us, you can do that via email to support@bargainbeadbox.com, or check out the Bargain Bead Box Creative Corner Facebook group and post your design there. Either way, we'd love to see what you create. And if you mark your either your post or your email as a contest entry, we'll get you entered in the design gallery drawing, as well as the upcoming December crowd favorite contest. So we do leave those contests open for 2 months, so make sure to share your December designs with us by February 10th to be eligible to enter. Thank you all so much for being here. Thanks for hanging out with me on this rainy day. I hope you have an absolutely wonderful week, a beautiful holiday season with your family. Merry Christmas, happy holidays, and as always, happy beading.